So, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar. As you'll appreciate, this is the third in a series of Citrix performance management webinars that we've been holding. And the title of today's webinar is Unify Citrix User Experience with Back-End Application Performance Data, and is in partnership with Correlsense. As I mentioned before, my name's Phil Swainson, and I'm the head of the Technical Service Department here at Kedron UK. I'll be moderating the event today. I'll shortly be handing over to my colleague Ite from Correlsense to deliver the live demonstration. But just a couple of points before we start. That's that all participants will be muted by default as they enter the session. That's just to avoid any background noise. But it doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If you have questions that you'd like answered, then please feel free to drop them into the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel that you should have in front of you. Now, we'll either answer those questions directly during the session, or we'll cover them following the demonstration at the end of today's webinar. Finally, I'd just like to let you all know that this session is being recorded, and all of you will be notified tomorrow via email when this will be available. Please feel free to review it and, of course, share it with your colleagues. So, just before we go into the live demonstration, a couple of introductory points. As I mentioned previously, this is the third in a series of webinars, and we've been partnering with our different vendors with regards to the actual problems that Citrix may present you and different ways of being able to overcome those issues, with today's concentration on unifying the user experience with your back-end application performance data. Now, here at Kedron, our role with our customers is to help them to discover, measure, visualize their environments. That's whether it's infrastructure, applications, or business services, to bring all of those things together to enable our customers to get full visibility of these environments. So that means seeing everything, whether it's any application or any particular device vendor, to the end goal of having no blind spots with regards to these environments, particularly when it comes to applications and services as a whole. Now, according to a survey in 2016, over 50% of those that responded recognized that Citrix was one of their most critical business applications, and has been a real pain point for some of our customers as we've taken through this process of trying to make sure they have no blind spots. And 90% of those that responded felt that they weren't particularly satisfied with the way they were managing their Citrix infrastructure, with 76% saying they spent 2 days or more each week on troubleshooting the environment. So it's quite a pain point for a number of people, thus this series of webinars that we've been conducting with our partners. So we've mentioned that we're partnering with Correlsense today, so I'd like to hand over to Ite, who's going to take us through a presentation of the Correlsense product.
Hi everyone, my name is Itai and I am the head of delivery in Correlsense. I will talk today about the SharePath APM solution for monitoring XenApp Rich Client application. Rich Client and Citrix application are used widely in the enterprise environment, and it sometimes creates performance problems. And now we are asking ourselves, where is the problem? Is the problem in the data center or in the Citrix end user? And now, what is the problem? Who is impacted? When does the problem occur? In this presentation, I will outline the APM SharePath solution of monitoring XenApp Rich Client application. Many of the Citrix XenApp applications are a desktop rich client, which can interact with backend services such database, such any other application like web services and so on. And of course, this Citrix application is part of many other applications on your data center. SharePath provide a full data center trace route, trace from the user transaction, from the user click of the rich client to the last call on the database. SharePath capture each user click within the Windows application, including the window name, the button, or the label name. It captures all outgoing calls from that user click to the backend services. And then you get a full, complete data center, end-to-end single user transaction tree trace from the window up to the database. These days, Correlsense is introducing a new Citrix XenApp collector with the sole purpose of measuring latency between the XenApp terminal and actual XenApp server. So SharePath have two sides of the monitoring. The main APM that we are actually providing many years is the data center APM, and the measurement is from the XenApp server. And now with our new XenApp collector, we will collect the last mile of the measurement between the Citrix terminal into the XenApp server. And the SharePath is actually the first APM product to provide full analysis of user latency starting from the terminal into the XenApp server into the end of the data center. The measurement of the latency of the Citrix session is available today as technology preview, and it will be a part of our next upcoming release of SharePath version 5. And now I want to go with you to a live demonstration on a live application, and actually to show you our main screen of our APM solution. So this is our SharePath user interface. You can see that we have here, this page is called application topology. And this is actually gives you the view of all your traffic, of all your node in your application. In this case, you can see that we have here, this is a Citrix Rich Client XenApp application that is monitored by our collector, and it collects all the outgoing calls from the Citrix client into the database, in this case, or into the next layer of your application, in this case, a WebSphere. So here you can see all the flow of your application topology. Another view that we have here in our data center, this is the view of the transaction performance and health, the SLA watch of the transaction. When we are talking about transaction in Rich Client, so each transaction is actually a user click, a user action. The naming of each transaction is actually the window name or the button or the label of the window. And here we have the list of all the user action of this application in this particular time frame. And we have a list of KPIs on these user actions. We have the average response time, we have the volume, we have the SLA compliance, what is the percent of good transaction, of good user actions that was measured in this particular time frame, and so on. And now we saw that we have maybe a performance problem or kind of health problem. If we are doing a right click, we have a set of tools that help us to isolate the problem. For example, we have the transaction model. The transaction model is a page that gives you statistics of the workload of all tiers of this user action. We have the compare good versus bad. It's actually comparing the good transaction instances to the bad transaction instances. Or we have the compare time frame. It's actually, you can compare this user action on this time frame, comparing to 1 hour before, 1 week before, and so on. Another view that we have in SharePath is actually the raw data. The raw data is actually all the user action. In SharePath, we are not sampling. All action is monitored and displayed in the SharePath. So here, for example, you can see a list of all the user action with in the start time, the relevant application, the data center time, the SLA, and actually which was the user that generated this action. And if you want, you can actually filter by user action, or can create here any filtering that you want. Another view that we have is, again, still raw data, but now you can see all single transaction from the window, from the user click, up to end-to-end, up to the endpoint, in this case, the database. So we can see here that this is the user on this window. This is a monitoring rich client application. And now you can see that this rich client application created TDS request to the database. And here you can see the rich client application that create a HTTP request to the WebSphere. So you have a very deep raw data view on each user action. Another view that we have, this is data center intelligence. And here you can do a lot of analysis on your traffic. In this case, for example, we can see the database usage for each user action. Okay, so this is all the user action with the usage of the database. So now I went through some of the pages of our SharePath data center view. Of course, we can divide all the traffic based on location, and then you can get statistics based on locations. And now let's talk about the latency measurement of the Citrix session. If until now I talked about our data center solution that provided many years from the XenApp server into the database, that currently hundreds or thousands of collectors running on our customers. So now Correlsense is introducing the new Citrix XenApp collector with the sole purpose of measuring the latency here between the XenApp terminal and actual XenApp server. Today is ready as technology preview that actually can be installed as a technology preview. The screen is under development, so I don't have yet a live demo presentation. So now I'll go through some demo screens on the presentation. In this screen, we actually presenting the Citrix user dashboard of your application based on your programs. So for each user and for each session of user per program, we represent the KPI of the ICA latency and network performance. For example, we get here, this is the program, the start time of the session, ICA average latency, bytes of the network, and the throughput of the network. The same we have for the Citrix server. Again, we have an ICA latency and network performance for each server, for each application, and all the session of the server, again, of course, for the relevant time frame. And now, in this graph, if in the beginning we saw all the performance in the data center, and then we saw all the ICA latency of the Citrix terminal, and now we have this graph that actually you can compare and you can do analysis and compare the latency of the Citrix, the network, and the data center. In this example, for example, we have the user or session, the IC latency, and here we have the network volume, the data center response time, and the data center activity. So we have the latency, and so we have the latency, and then we can understand where is the problem. If we have a slowness, or if, for example, this user report on slowness on his application, we can then see his latency, the network of this session, and to compare it to the data center response time in this specific time frame. So now we can understand if the problem is in the Citrix latency or in the data center. And the same we have per server. We have the ICA latency of this server, the number of sessions of this server, the network volume in this server, and all this measurement we have in parallel to our data center response time and data center activity. And again, if I want to recap, for all this solution, we have here two sides. We have the data center side, end-to-end monitoring in the data center side, and in the Citrix side, we have the latency and the network. And if we have slowness, we can see and understand if the slowness in the side of the Citrix terminal or the side of the data center. And thank you until now. If you have some question, please.
Hi, Ete. Yes, we do have a couple of questions for you. So first of all, which XenApp server versions are supported by your platform?
Okay. We support from version 6.5 and up.
6.5 and up. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And one other one I don't think we've covered. What's the Citrix API that you're using?
Okay, the API of the Citrix only to monitor the Citrix latency and the network in the side of the terminal. We are using the WF API, and the data center is not relevant, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. I think other questions have been answered as we've gone through or directly in the chat. If not, don't worry, we'll come back to you on those. Just to let you know, we have made the handouts available via the session. You should now see that in the in your webinar control panel. And if I could ask you, Tay, to just move forward one slide to provide our list of resources. There you go. So some additional resources that you might like to avail yourselves of. Now, if you'd like a free consultation with us to get the best visibility of your Citrix environment, then there's a link in the resource there where you can book a visit online with us. So I'd like to thank Ite from Correlsense and all of you for joining. We'll leave the session open for just a few minutes. If you'd like to ask any additional questions, then feel free again to type those into the questions section. Otherwise, again, thank you very much for attending the session for us today. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you all.